So I'm in the school pickup line, but we will make this really fast. So estrogen and progesterone play this like tug of war game on your histamine. And you can see this peak and then valley throughout a menstrual cycle. Estrogen has multiple different impacts. I don't have my notes right now, but it has multiple different impacts on histamine. There's this enzyme in your intestines called DAO, and DAO is responsible for breaking down the histamine before it sneaks into your blood, and it's also responsible for degrading the histamine in your peripheral system outside of your cells. So anything besides your head, your brain and your spinal cord, and then anything outside of your cells. Estrogen will slow that guy down, so he doesn't catch as much histamine as he should and break it down. Estrogen also upregulates the enzyme you have in your body that creates histamine. It's called histamine decarboxylase, or HDC, and it actually speeds it up so you produce more of your own histamine. And that's from the amino acid histidine, so if you take a lot of histidine, it could be shoving into histamine. And then on mast cells, right, that will degranulate and release histamine and prostaglandins, there's an estrogen receptor. It's estrogen receptor alpha. So when estrogen binds to that, it causes the mast cells to be a little bit more sensitive, and they'll degranulate or release histamine and progesterone a lot easier. And then finally, estrogen makes your blood vessels more leaky, so histamine's a lot more likely to get from your blood into your tissues where it can cause havoc. Progesterone kind of does the opposite. Progesterone supports the gut lining and makes it less leaky, so you have more DAO and not as much histamine gets from your intestines into your blood. Progesterone also slows down that histamine decarboxylase, so you don't make as much of your own histamine. It stabilizes your mast cells and it makes blood vessels a lot less leaky. So typically we see, if you look at like a chart of the hormones in the menstrual cycle, right? Estrogen and progesterone both typically plummet during like day 1 of your cycle. Also during day 1 of your cycle, your endometrium, the lining of your uterus, is starting to shed, and just that is releasing a lot of prostaglandins and inflammation that can cause your histamine to get a lot worse. Typically, the times that we see are the best for people that have histamine dysfunction are, I think it's a day 19 to 21. I'll put it in the comments if I'm wrong, but it's when your progesterone is the highest and your estrogen is the lowest. Now, when you're pregnant, and this is when a lot of people find out that they have histamine intolerance, or when it triggers, is right after they give birth, because DAO, when you're pregnant, goes to I think it's 10 times the normal level. So you and baby are very, very, very protected when you are pregnant, because progesterone's really high, plus all of those baby genes kick in, and DAO is just everywhere. So you typically will go into a remission while you're pregnant, but as soon as you have that baby, you are going to dip lower in DAO and higher in histamine decarboxylase, so making more histamine than you will have at any point in time previously in your life. So this is why a lot of people find out they have histamine issues right after they give birth, or maybe they've never had histamine issues in the past, or now they just have a really weird symptom constellation right after they give birth, is because it's histamine dysfunction. So making sure that you keep your estrogen and your progesterone in balance and you're not in estrogen dominance is really, really big to making sure that your histamine dysfunction goes away. This is all in my histamine report. I have an entire section on the female hormones and how they interplay with histamine, and then ways you can help it. Wild yam cream is really good for raising your progesterone. It will also help you get pregnant really easy. So if you're not looking to get pregnant, but you need kind of your estrogen and your progesterone to balance out, please just know that that's a risk. Wild yam cream will increase your progesterone, so it'll increase the stickiness of that baby. And then two, if you do get pregnant and you are using wild yam cream or progesterone birth control, progesterone only birth control, if you go off of that really, really easily, your body's not used to making progesterone on its own. So there is a chance your progesterone levels are going to drop and the baby is not going to be as sticky. So you may have a miscarriage, right? So I would be really, really careful going off of wild yam cream or progesterone only birth control when you have histamine dysfunction or when you're just newly pregnant. Ask your OBGYN before you go off of it, and just know you might need to taper off of it over the course of 2 months or so.